Shalom, this is Shira Sherbow coming to you from Sfat, Israel, and welcome to our weekly meeting of Torah for the Nations. Well, this was the week of Purim, and a lot of things have been happening in the world, and it seems like in the last week everything has come to it's like slowly building, and then this last week everything seems to be in a huge panic, I guess is the word. But I remember about 8 years ago or so talking to a friend of mine and telling her, we shouldn't call the Torah the Old Testament, because we were raised that our Bible had a New Testament and an Old Testament. But I said, I think if we say Old Testament, that's being like anti-Semitic. And she was like, what do you mean anti-Semitic? And so I had just started learning about the Torah, and I said, the Jewish people say that their Torah is alive and well and very relevant for today. And when I look at the Torah portion that we're reading this week, it just is amazing to me how what we read in our Torah that was written so many years ago is just so relevant for what is going on in current events in our world today. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. One of the things that we know is that this Torah portion is the portion of the golden calf. And one of the things that we know is that what caused the people to build the golden calf was a state of panic. Another thing that I learned was that Moses spent a lot of time talking to God, and his face glowed when he came down from the mountain. And it says that the word that is used, that it says when Moses covered his face with the Hebrew word is masecha, and it means a mask. So here we are in this Torah portion. We read this portion during the week of Purim, when we all wear masks, and the whole world is wearing masks. And it even says that Moses wore a mask in this Torah portion this week. It also says that the priests washed their hands and their feet to stay alive. So all we've been seeing in current events is how we have to wash our hands. And so the Torah is not the Old Testament. The Torah is alive and well, and that just gives me great comfort that God wrote this Torah for us so many years ago, but here we are. It's alive and well for our generation, for right now. And I was listening to Chaim Richmond talk about this Torah portion last year, and he was saying this portion that there's a golden calf mentality in every generation. And he was saying that the real sin that caused them to make a golden calf was this thing called subjectivity. And so I've been thinking a lot about my life and how in my journey of wanting to know who God is, how many times did I think objectively and how many times did I think subjectively? And he was saying that, these people that built the golden calf, they were trying to have a relationship with God on their terms. They were a lot more comfortable with having something they could see. They weren't trying to replace God, they were trying to replace Moses. They thought that Moses was dead, and they panicked. And when I was learning about the Bible and people were coming to my house, I know one of the first things they said was that this is the Old Testament, this is Moses, this is the law. It's like Moses is dead, the law is nailed to the cross, now there's something new. And so I was given a teaching about who God was from a certain perspective. And I spent my whole life searching for God. As a little girl, I remember praying on little rosary beads, praying to Mary. I know what it's like to feel more comfortable. I felt very comfortable praying to Mary because it was like we said things like, Holy Mary, Mother of God. And so Mary was a woman and Mary was a mother. And I remember being a little girl and praying to Mary. And so I understand this idea of needing to have something physical to relate to God, because it takes a lot of spiritual maturity to really think that you can talk to God, but you can't see him, and he's endless, he's forever, and to just grasp that with the human mind is so hard. So I think it's all of us on our journey when we're spiritually immature. It's not that we're evil people. It's not that we don't yearn to have a relationship with God. It's just like these people that built the golden calf. They were wanting a relationship with God, but they were spiritually immature, and they went about it the wrong way, and they were punished for it. And this idea of a national repentance came into the world. They repented as one. And so I think all of us, what we need to do, the priests wash their hands and their feet, because these are the things that connect us to the world. We don't wash our feet so much anymore, but we're all being told to wash our hands. And it's like, as the priests would wash their hands, they would, every day you'd have to say, God, and this is what each of us can do, like every time we wash our hands, God, do I really know you? Am I knowing you in a very objective way or a very subjective way? Am I giving in to my feelings? Am I giving in to my upbringing? Is everything my idea of what I want you to be? Or do I really know you and who you truly are? And every day, if the priests had to do this, and they're the ones that are teaching the people about God, then all the more we have to draw close to God, and we have to say, God, I want to know you. I want to know the real you. I don't want to conjure up some image of you that I think you should be. I think of this story that I heard about this farmer, that he was like the worst sinner in town, and he got saved. This is a Christian story that I heard when I was a Christian. He got saved, and it was a great story of how he used to be a terrible sinner, and then he got saved. And so they said, you should go around and travel the United States, and people would love to hear your story. So that's what he did. He traveled all around, and he told his story of, how he used to be and how he got saved, and everybody loved his story. The only thing was, when he got back to his hometown, the season had already passed for planting, and he hadn't planted, and he was a farmer, and this was his livelihood. And so it was 2 weeks before harvest, and he said, well, I'm just going to believe God. I'm just going to trust God. And he bought $10,000 worth of seed, and he planted. 2 weeks before harvest time, he planted. And he said, God, I need you to come through for me. I need you to make a miracle. I know this is not the way it's usually done, but you're God, and you can do anything, and I'm just really trusting in you. And so in his mind, he made up an idea of who he wanted God to be and who he needed God to be. And he was spiritually immature, because he just didn't really grasp that that's degrading to God. We have to know God on his terms. It can't be just because we think he's going to do something or he should do something. Anyway, nothing came up, and he lost $10,000, and he was very angry with God. But this is what I mean, like, we don't want to get something in our head that God is a man, that God is somebody that if we just really believe hard enough that he's going to do something, that he'll do it. Like, God doesn't work for us. We don't, even though we would feel comfortable and we want to make God into who we want him to be, that's not how it works. And this is what the people that built the golden calf, it was like, no, everything is on God's terms, not our terms. And so what we need to do every day as we're washing our hands is like, God, I just want to start fresh today. Who are you? If I have a false interpretation of you, if my thinking is off, if I'm just doing something because this is what I was taught from birth. You know, if I grew up in Haiti with witch doctors, then I just believe in witch doctors. If I grew up in Utah and everybody's a Mormon, then I'm a Mormon. If I grew up in Rome, New York, where I did, and everybody's Catholic, then I'm Catholic. Like, have I really just tried to objectively get to know you, or do I just know you because of my upbringing? And every time we wash our hands, let's just think about that. Let's just think about, God, tell me, I really want to know you. Who are you really? I don't want to make something up in my mind of who you are, or think that you're telling me something, but it's really just my own imaginations. I really want to know you on your terms. And so I wanted to read what Chaim Richmond said at the end. He said that man thinks he can make gods for himself. He can raise up a man or an idea or an image or an institution or a power, and then he thinks God will invest it with godliness. But we should not try to manipulate divine forces. And our efforts, this is the part that I love, our efforts should be concerned with what sort of person does God want me to be. Instead of thinking, what does God need to do for me, or what do I need from God? What sort of person does God need me to be? What kind of person am I becoming? So he says we should rise to a spiritual maturity. We shouldn't try to fashion a God according to our needs, but we should strive to bring ourselves closer to God on His terms. And this is the lesson of the golden calf for every generation, and our portion in the ongoing fixing, in this case of mistaken identity. So, who was that masked man? The masked man was Moses. Moses wore a mask in this Torah portion. So our God is in control. Our God knew this was going to be happening at this time during this Torah portion, when it's talking about washing the hands, wearing the mask. I mean, the panic. Here it is. It's in our Torah. So let's just concentrate on working on ourselves, becoming who God wants us to be, drawing close to Him, knowing who He is on His terms, not who we need Him to be or who we've always just been taught. But let's be mature. Let's get to a spiritual level of maturity where we just really objectively think, who are you, God, and what do you need from me? So, as you wash your hands, remember whose hands that you're in. All right, that's all for now. Shalom from Israel.